Well, hello, everyone. How's it going? Happy Sunday to all of you. Welcome to Effed Up News of the Week. Effed Up News is a little stream that I do on Sundays where we talk about, predictably, effed up news. And we do have a whole bunch of stories this week that we're going to be digging into. I just want to start off by making sure you guys can hear me just because I seem to be having a little audio problem on my end. So I want to make sure it's coming through loud and clear for all of you. Make sure you chat in. Let me know if you can hear me. Incognito says, something from Canada, great time, and wife ready to move. Wife is ready to move to the USA. Yay, Incognito! I'm sure that's gonna be amazing for you when that happens. I know it's been a long time coming for you guys. Uh, let's see. Okay, looks like sound is good. You know what? Then my audio problem doesn't matter at all. We'll go with what works. Well, guys, we got a whole bunch of stories to cover today for Effed Up News. Let me give you a little bit of a preview now. We have to talk about this one, don't we? How right-wing extremists weaponized the idea of motherhood. You know, I was a little ambivalent about whether or not I thought the woke left was trying to go after the idea of the concept of the family. I was really ambivalent about this for a long time, even when Black Lives Matter listed it in their original manifesto before they changed it. That they were basically like going after like traditional families, even when you see it showing up in things like what was taught in Gabrielle Clark's son's class at the high school in Nevada, that traditional families are an element of oppression or something like that. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but I had seen these different elements showing up that were attacks on the family. And I never quite put as much stock into it as a lot of people. I was never like woke left trying to destroy the family because they're trying to break down our social systems because that's what it is. But no, I think we can actually pretty much say that yes, they probably are trying to attack the idea of the family for many reasons that we could posit. And we're going to talk about that today. We are also going to talk about, have you guys seen this unhinged, like 3-part hit piece that the New York Times has done on Tucker Carlson? We're not going to read the whole thing because that would take forever, but we are going to look at different parts of it just for fun. And there are several parts of it. It is like incredibly unhinged. Look at this. Look at this. They've got all these graphics. Like if you look at their homepage here on, let's look at the New York Times' homepage real quick. Look at this. It's so nuts. And of course, Tucker Carlson handled it in exactly the way that you should handle it, which is to treat the news with the righteous indignation with which they deserve and laugh at them because they're incompetent shills and they have only uplifted Tucker even further than he already was. We're also going to look at this story. Midwifery students taught how to care for males giving birth. All right. We're going to look at this one. I'm a gay kindergarten teacher in Florida. These are the questions I'm asking myself. By special request from my locals community, we're going to look at this one. Trans Scott killer, now identifying as infant, demands nappies and baby food in jail. And, you know, just because I can, we're going to talk about me getting canceled by the National Speakers Association for, wait for it, speech. We are going to talk about that. We've got all that coming up today on Effed Up News of the Week. Go ahead and mount that like button for me if you appreciate some of the more effed up news that's going on in our world. And of course, if you really want to support the work I'm doing, the best thing you can do is become a member of my locals community. Locals, I honestly, guys, like, thank God for locals. Thank God for you guys. You guys keep me sane. Last night on our drama streams, you guys are really enjoying having my back on the drama streams, which, to be quite frank, with the amount of bullshit that I have to put up with to continue to do this stuff on YouTube all the time, it really does actually feel nice to actually feel like I have people that have my back. So that's actually been really nice. And you guys can get access to my locals and meet the amazing people in my community by becoming a supporter today. You can always join my locals for free. Just head over to kb.locals.com. You can sign up for free. You can take a look around, see what's going on, see how much activity we have in our locals community compared to like most other locals community on that platform. Like, even guys, we have more activity than some of the much bigger names on that platform. Now, that's not to say that the much bigger names do have more members, because they have much bigger names. But our community actually has stuff going on in it. We help each other, we support each other, we have each other's backs. It really is the most sane, happy place on the internet. And if you want to unlock all the features and locals and support the work I'm doing and keeping me in business, you can head over to kb.locals.com/support and join for $5 a month, so less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You can join for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift of support, which of course I greatly, greatly appreciate. When you become a member, when you become an annual member of my locals, you can actually request a free autographed customized book plate for my upcoming book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. That is only for annual members in my locals. You're going to be able to request that for free. Everyone who is a member is going to get access to 2 Zoom calls that we do twice a week. We do them on Mondays at 7 p.m. We do them on Wednesdays at noon. We also just had a book club yesterday. So our next book club is going to be around my book. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll talk more about that in a sec. But we did just have a book club yesterday. That was really great. We have a bitchcraft coming up this coming weekend. So we're basically going to get on a Zoom and craft and complain or just talk or do whatever we're doing. All sorts of stuff going on in my locals, including Writers Club. You get access to the community Discord. I mean, dude, there's just a lot. There's a lot. So come check it out. Join the best community on the internet and find your little bastion of sanity in the world in which we live. All right, let's dig into it. And we're going to start off. I have been waiting waiting to since I saw this story show up on Twitter the other day. I've been waiting to read it just so I could do a nice little reaction with you guys for Effed Up News, because that's part of what Effed Up News is. Like, I generally am reacting to this stuff in real time. I try to find stories that I think sound a little bit crazy, and I read them in real time. Let me see. I'm just trying to mess with something is going on with my audio today. Is it Mercury retrograde? Oh God, please don't let it be Mercury. It's like an eclipse or something. That's what's really going on. Let's read this. How right-wing extremists weaponized the idea of motherhood. Women play a more significant role in far-right extremist movements than is often acknowledged. This is on MSNBC because, of course, it is. Let's read. A new, hang on. Yes. A new report on the January 6th Capitol attack, published this month by researchers at George Washington University, detailed the role that women have played in the American far-right extremism over the past century, including how many are leaning heavily into their identities as mothers to justify their engagement and to recruit and mobilize others. So women who have children are calling themselves mothers, and this is a problem? I mean, isn't that kind of like a key part of their role? Oh, you know what, Judy, you're right. It wouldn't be next weekend, it'd be the weekend after. Judy is correct. Judy is correct. I got confused. Okay, we'll work all that out in locals, Judy. Don't worry about it. Women play a more significant role in far-right extremist movements than is often acknowledged. The 102 women who have been arrested in connection with the attack as of mid-March represent 13% of January 6th federal cases, the report found. Some faced felony charges and others faced misdemeanors. Around 10% of them are accused of having either engaged in or conspired in violence. Their alleged behavior on January 6th is consistent with what experts have argued for years, namely that women play a more significant role in far-right extremist movements than is often acknowledged. Extremist scenes and movements recruit and engage women for a variety of reasons. Women are a useful way of softening or rebranding the face of violent or supremacist movements in ways that can both recruit both men and other women. Well, we have to be really clear about what they mean by both violent and supremacist movements, because as we know, January 6th actually had nothing to do with white supremacy at all. It had to do with a couple people, probably feds, starting a riot and then blaming it on Trump supporters. They have also been used statistically to try to depict government responses to actions, protests, or violence as overreaching. The Southern Poverty Law Center reported that during a standoff with the federal government in 2014, one anti government group used women as human shields, noting the significant media attention would follow if federal agents started shooting at women. Well, okay, I don't know the veracity of any of this because this is before my red pill time. But what I will say is that for a title of an article to argue that women are weaponizing the idea of motherhood, and as not yet having said anything about why they're focusing on motherhood specifically, they're just talking about women in general. I mean, you can always pick out fringe cases if you need to, but they actually haven't yet focused on the idea of mothers at all. But above all, women have historically engaged in extremist movements through their domestic roles and identity as wives, daughters, and mothers. They use the roles to support backstage activities like sewing KKK hoods. Did women generally do that backstage? I mean, I'm not defending the practice. I'm just asking, like, wouldn't the hoods have already been so okay? Cooking meals for gatherings and homeschooling children. Oh my god, it's the evil homeschoolers of children. And don't you think we're gonna actually talk about homeschooling again a little bit later? Don't you think for one red second they aren't coming after homeschooling? Of course they are. But also to mobilize men as protectors of their purity and vulnerability in the face of a range of purported threats. So, another thing this article is then going after is the idea of like traditional roles. Now, of course, like I don't actually subscribe to this traditional gender role stuff that's going on the conservative right. However, I don't really care if people do. If people want to have traditional gender roles in their relationships with the men as the provider and the protector and the little woman who's pregnant and barefoot in the kitchen making them a sandwich, that is their choice. They should be able to live their lives however they want. But to me, it seems like they're attacking those traditional gender roles as a way to own the far right, because that's, of course, what they do. Oh, finally, we're getting to motherhood. Excellent. Motherhood plays an especially key role in the kinds of rhetorical strategies far right extremists use, including the kind of utopian propaganda that calls on followers to reject modernity and embrace traditional values and roles. But women aren't called upon to be entirely passive as mothers or to be relegated. There it is. Oh my God. Relegated. That's the word I'm looking for, or to be relegated completely to domestic tasks. Rather, motherhood is used to justify women's engagement in activism and to depoliticize their actions by positioning them as acting on behalf of their children and families. Well, God forbid that women act on behalf of their children and families. I mean, can't why aren't they arguing that every time a Democrat runs for school board, a Democratic woman mother runs for school board, they're acting on behalf of their children and families? Are the Democratic women just doing it out of the goodness of their own heart, but the Republican women, oh my God, they're evil. They're weaponizing the idea of motherhood. How dare they? Themes about the need to protect children are especially powerful in drawing women into extreme and even violent action, as illustrated by the rise of conspiracy theories and propaganda that mobilized mothers around themes of child exploitation and protection. Is MSNBC actually arguing in favor of child exploitation? Listen, I don't have a kid. I don't even like kids. I don't want a kid. I am perfectly happy being a childless woman. Perfectly happy. I have money. I have time. I don't have crying. I don't have there's so many benefits to not having children, and I have no regrets. And if there's like an accident of some sort, we'll deal with that another time. But like I'm actually not in favor of child exploitation. I'm not in favor of children being indoctrinated. Like you don't even have to like kids to understand that just on a societal level, it is not good for children to be indoctrinated in public schools. That doesn't bode well for us and the future of our civilization on just a very practical level. Some women have been drawn into QAnon through relatively banal entry points like wellness blogs and yoga studios, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. In these spaces, healthy skepticism of traditional medicine and a propensity for alternative models of wellness can create inadvertent gateways to an entire rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and disinformation, much of which calls on women to protect children. Dude, okay, let me tell you what. As someone that actually does read wellness blogs and well, contrary to rumors started on the internet last night, has does not go to yoga studios, even though apparently some people think I go to yoga studios, but I promise you I do not. But I do read wellness blogs and all that woo woo type of stuff. Let me tell you what, that's one of the most woke audiences that exists in the world. Those are not QAnon conspiracy theorists. I'm sorry. Like woo woo wellness blogs and like things that are outside of like traditional medicine, those are incredibly liberal, incredibly leftist, and incredibly woke. And if you're not in that category, you are going to find out right quick that most of the people you interact with in those communities are. Yeah, yoga is now a right wing conspiracy theory. That's right. That's right. And apparently, the best yoga retreats in the world are in England. Who knew? We were informed of this on Twitter last night. Who knew, guys? Mom lifestyle influencers who have embraced the QAnon conspiracy have integrated posts about child trafficking into their regular content feeds with home decorating, cooking, and child rearing tips, a challenge for parenting website editors who have reported an uptick in conspiracy theory posts. QAnon moms, for example, have helped fuel women's engagement in conspiracy fueled violence, including allegations of kidnapping or plots to kidnap children because they believe they were rescuing them from, the thing that starts with P. I need to come up with a euphemism for that. Rings or Satan worshiping groups using the hashtag Save the. Is this where this comes from? Wait, 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 wait. Is this where this comes from? Does this Save the Children thing come from QAnon? No, really, I'm really asking because, like, with all the Disney stuff that happened last week, my feet and me kind of going off on conservatives and being like, you guys don't really believe in free speech or lower taxes or small government. So my entire Twitter feed last week was filled with people saying, "Save the children." Is this QAnon? Is that a QAnon thing? I'm honestly asking because I had not put two and two together last week when I was talking about like the Disney stuff and seeing a metric F ton of replies saying "Save the children." I didn't put it together, but now I'm starting to put it together. I don't know. The rise of conspiracies that manipulate mothers' fears about their own children and mobilize them to violent action or political engagement is a look at this. Holy shit. Look at this sentence. Look at this sentence. They are actually equating mothers taking violent action or being politically engaged. Look at the juxtaposition here. I'm going to read this sentence again and just like notice the juxtaposition between violent action and political engagement, which is supposed to be a good thing, by the way. It is actually supposed to be a good thing to be politically engaged and astute and paying attention to what's going on. But no, they're going to equate it to taking violent action when it comes to mothers. The rise of conspiracy theories that manipulate mothers' fears about their own children and mobilize them to violent action or political engagement is a troubling trend. Why does MSNBC think that mothers being politically engaged is a troubling trend? Isn't that telling? Isn't that telling that that means that we should absolutely double down on the mom army that Chris Rufo's trying to mobilize? But mobilizing motherhood is not new. After the September 11th attacks, one of the most popular pieces of amateur propaganda, as Wired described in 2001, depicted Mommy Liberty, a gun toting Statue of Liberty holding a child swathed in an American flag. During her 2008 vice presidential run, Sarah Palin coined the term Mama Grizzlies to refer to conservative women who will protect their children from bad government policies. On the extremist fringe, women still represent the significant minority of violent and non-violent engagement. So, all engagement. Because, guys, guess what? Like, all engagement of any type is either violent or non-violent. Like, is there a third answer? Kind of violent, semi violent, sort of violent? What do I think of the Disinformation Governance Board? I'm not going to cover this today because, like, everyone and their mother has covered it, but it's Orwellian as hell. It is the most Orwellian thing I've ever seen in my life. And I just wanted to answer that because I knew I was going to get that question because I'm not covering it. No, this Disinformation Governance Board is the most Orwellian thing I've ever heard of in my life. The minute that the government starts telling you what is true and what's not true, is the minute that the government is regulating what you can believe and what you can think and what you can say and what ideas you can consider and what is socially acceptable. And it is absolutely ridiculous. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if Republicans actually fight back. I'm going to guess they don't because they never do. By the way, I was actually thinking about this. And this is just a thought I want to throw out there to see what you guys think. So I was thinking about this earlier because I have a lot of like conservatives. Like, okay, anytime graphically Alex and I did Sassy Saturday last night, and we've done Sassy Saturday the last couple of weeks. And Sassy Saturday is a drama stream. It's entirely drama. We're bitches. We are awful. We are gossipy. It is a drama stream. That is the purpose of Sassy Saturday. And every single time we've done Sassy Saturday, I have conservatives commenting on it going, "How dare you engage in drama?" And I'm like, "Do you watch the other 6 days a week of content that I do?" Like, "You only ever engage in drama." I'm like, "I have 6 other days a week of content that is not dramatic at all in any way." And so they get really angry about this. And anyway, I was thinking about this earlier and I was like, why is it always universally conservatives who tell me that I should consent to my own bullying, which is exactly what they're telling me when they say don't engage in drama. They're saying basically you should consent to your own bullying and you shouldn't stand up for yourself. I think the reason I hear that from conservatives is because conservatives have consented to their own bullying for decades. They've consented to be bullied by the left for decades and decades and decades, and they never stand up for themselves. And I think that this whole governance board thing is actually one of the prime examples of that. Are we going to see the Republicans stand up and fight back against what is obviously an Orwellian overreach to create an establishment within the government that tells us what ideas we can consider? Are conservatives going to do anything? Are Republicans going to do anything? Because if they're not, they are literally consenting to their own bullying. That's what they're doing. And so it's like, I think that the reason that conservatives are like totally complain every time I stand up and defend myself against internet nonsense and bullshit is because they are perfectly happy being bullied and they think everyone else should exist in that space. It's actually kind of like a weird thing. Yeah, I think Gremlin, this is exactly right. It's like political Stockholm syndrome. It really is. People on the right have got to get over it, man. They really do. It's bad. People have got to start standing up for themselves. I will never apologize for standing up for myself because I want to be an example of people who can stand up for themselves, of people who do speak up when nonsense is going on. Emphasize says you aren't allowed to block anyone if you're elected governor. I'm not going to be elected governor. Everyone needs to get rid of that hope and dream right now. It is not going to happen. Now, I'll run for governor. Don't get me wrong. I will. I am, technically. But I'm not going to get elected governor, so that's not really going to be an eventuality that I have to worry about. Anyway, nope, I'm not Jennifer. I'm talking about conservatives. Actually, more conservative than Rhino. More conservative than Rhinos stick up for themselves sometimes. Conservatives do not. Anyway, let's go back to this. And to be clear, women also are often victims of tremendous misogyny, harassment, or worse at the hands of men within these movements. Kathleen Blee's research on women in white supremacist movements has described racist skinhead men who refer to women in their groups as oi toys and who are proud to dominate their wives and girlfriends. Well, sometimes, and we covered this last night on Sassy Saturday as well, sometimes women need to be dominated because it actually makes them more powerful in real life. I'm just saying. I'm not defending the type of domination they're talking about there, but I'm just saying. But it is important to recognize the ways that motherhood is used to recruit and defend women's engagement in violent or anti-democratic movements, including trying to mitigate culpability in criminal or violent responses. Well, speaking of anti-democratic movements, let me let me just ask, like, do like a poll in the chat. I'm gonna do a poll, okay? Do you let me see. Do you believe that democracy multiple choice on the ballot? Yes, no. So basically what I'm asking guys is, do you believe, I mean, okay, so first off, we are not a democracy. We're not, we're a republic. But let's just like exist in this fantasy land for a second that we are a democracy. In order for a democracy to function, would you agree that you need to have multiple candidates listed on the ballot with which to give the voters a choice about who their elected representatives are? Now, this is not a trick question. I swear to God. Do you believe that in order for a democracy to function, that requires multiple choices on the ballot, and then people show up and they vote for whoever they want, and then the person who gets the most votes win? Is that generally how it's supposed to go? Do I have that confused? It looks like about 94% of you in the chat agree with me. 94% of you agree that democracy requires choices. Here's why I bring this up. So I did signature. I'm going to be doing a lot of signature gathering over the next several months because we need to basically collect about 5,000 signatures in New Hampshire in order to get me and Jeremy Kaufman actually listed on the ballot to be for me for governor and him for Senate. His race is a lot more important than mine, but it's on the same form, so it's the same thing. So we're doing a lot of signature gathering. Basically, we go outside and we stand outside a supermarket and we say, "Will you help us get a third party on the ballot?" And people either sign or they don't. Now, what's interesting about this experience that I had doing this last weekend was that you could always tell who the Democrats were because the first off, they'd be wearing a mask outside where they don't need to. And when you ask them to sign the petition, they would go, "No, I absolutely will not endorse another candidate on the ballot." And I would always yell at them as they were like stomping away in a huff. I'd be like, "Democracy requires choices. Why don't you want a democracy?" And the reason I say this is because, I've seen now directly through my own experience that most or at least the Democratic voters that I encountered in New Hampshire have no desire for a democracy at all. No desire at all in any way. They want Democrats to be the only people that are actually allowed on the ballot. Liz Craft says, "Come to the Hudson Market Basket." I think we're doing Bedford next week, but we do have a standing invitation from Market Basket to basically go to whatever Market Basket we want to do this. So maybe I'll hit Hudson at some point. Anyway, let's keep going. The GWU report analyzed how motherhood is used in women's January 6th legal defense to make women appear more sympathetic by emphasizing their caretaking roles and status as good mothers and grandmothers who are devoted to their husbands and families. God forbid that women have a defense when they're accused of egregious crimes under the January 6th Commission or whatever the hell. Such defense strategies paint a picture of these women as nurturers who love their families and are committed to raising productive citizens in an attempt to outweigh the serious charges they face. It's easy to understand why calling on women to protect their children from unimaginable harm is effective. But that's also what makes it so dangerous. Because motherhood itself is being used to manipulate women and to recruit and mobilize and justify violent and anti democratic actions. How dare they? So, per usual, as is the case with MSNBC, they wrote a lot of words, but they didn't actually say anything of substance. All right, guys, this is Effed Up News of the Week. Please mount that like button if you have not already. Let's take a look at this hit piece that the New York Times did on Tucker Carlson. Again, the New York Times went out of their way on this hit piece. They not only did a one part, not only a two part, but a three-part hit piece on Tucker Carlson. And I want to see if we can I want to look at this third part. We're not going to read because they're incredibly long. Like look at the length. Let me just scroll through this one. Look at the length of this propaganda piece that they did on Tucker Carlson. That's just one section. Like if we tried to read this, we'd be here all day. The New York Times, I think it's safe to say, wants to date Tucker Carlson. It's safe to say that they might be a little obsessed with him. But what I want to take a look at, and I'm hopeful we're going to be able to get this to work because again, there's some weird audio thing going on my end, but I don't think it's impacting you guys. I want to actually take a look at the third part that they did because it's like a full-on multimedia like show and it has audio in it. So I'm going to play the audio of this and you guys let me know if you hear it in the chat, okay?
They don't care what you think. They want to control your mind. They want you to do what you're told. They want you to kiss the ring. They're not sentimental. They want power. They want power. They hate you. They want to hurt you. They call you a racist. They call you racist. They want to control what you do. And of course, they want to control your children too. And they want you to know it. They couldn't be clearer about that.
How crazy is this? They're trying to make Tucker Carlson basically look like propaganda.
Tucker Carlson.
Look at this. Inside the apocalyptic worldview of Tucker Carlson tonight. A New York Times analysis of 1,150 episodes reveals how Tucker Carlson pushes extremist ideas and conspiracy theories into millions of households 5 days a week. He's done so since the beginning. But the show has gotten darker. Mr. Carlson, 52, has one of the largest megaphones in all of cable television. When President Donald J. Trump left office, Mr. Carlson filled the void on the right. Here's how the show works. I mean, I'm especially impressed. They put together a whole fucking multimedia piece. This is more than just a simple article. This is like ever. Rick, have I thought about getting a job reading for Audible? Rick, it is funny you asked that question because I will indeed be recording my own audiobook very, very soon. And we will talk about that in a second. But no, I will not be getting a job beyond my own audiobook, but that will be coming very soon. They want to control what you do. When you enter Mr. Carlson's world each night, you are among his 3 million plus viewers, a part of a Fox News audience that is 92% white and overwhelmingly older, according to Nielsen data. They are the ruling class. They threaten everything you believe in. They include Democratic and some Republican officials, members of the media, big tech executives, academics, sports and Hollywood stars, and many others. Many of the people here have been attacked in dozens or even hundreds of episodes. Oh, God forbid that AOC get attacked, or Michelle Obama, or Joe Biden, or Fauci, or Pete Buttigieg. God forbid any of these, Mark Zuckerberg. God forbid any of these people get attacked on Tucker Carlson.
So Tony Fauci is back, unchastened, with still more commands. He cares about the environment to the extent it gives him more power. Things are getting more dangerous in this country. Luckily, Kamala Harris has a plan. She plans to disarm you. Liz Cheney can harness the awesome power of the national security state to seize your personal text messages.
They're defending
Sandy
Liz
Cortez
Cheney.
And her friends want to abolish
the New York Times is defending Liz Cheney.
Not their police. So this is a lady with huge estates all over the country who brags that she's a $30,000 freezer, telling you just have to suck it up and be poor for the planet she doesn't care about at all. So if you're asking yourself, does a
oh God, George Soros, holy shit,
have enough control over the way my country operates?
Look, there's Mitt Romney, Don Lemon.
Yes, the tech oligarchs join forces to censor their political opponents. You may be one of them. You weren't being paranoid to worry about this. You were absolutely right.
They're so bent out of shape that Tucker Carlson actually talks to his audience like they're people. Did you guys notice when they were highlighting his commentary, they had like the word "you" bold, as if to insinuate that if you're part of the audience that Tucker Carlson is talking to, you're like a horrible person. Mr. Carlson frames nearly every topic on his show as a ruling class plot. Well, that's the ironclad law of woke projection if I've ever seen it. From gun control to marijuana legalization to COVID restrictions.
Why are people who have taxpayer-funded bodyguards demanding that the rest of us disarm immediately? People in charge are suddenly for weed. Is it because they're super cool? Or is there some other reason they might want a passive
Look how demonic they've made him look by zooming in on his face.
Controlling the rest of us.
They've like cropped his face so closely because they want him to look like a propagandist.
Dutifully changed their Twitter avatars from mask up to the now mandatory Ukrainian flag. Our ruling class is obsessed with denying biology because when you're God, there is no objective reality. The point of the exercise is to humiliate the
They're
rest
trying to
of
make him
us
look like Big
by
Brother,
forcing us to obey transparently
which is
absurd
ironic,
orders. The point
given they're the
is to
ones
disarm
advancing
you,
a
to
ministry
strip
of
you of
truth.
your autonomy,
You,
your power,
your power,
right of
your
self-defense.
Even the Western response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, according to Mr. Carlson, is part of a plot. Why should you hate President Vladimir Putin when they cause everything Mr. Carlson says is wrong with society? The real enemies, Mr. Carlson implies with rhetorical questions, are his usual targets, China and the U.S. ruling class. Isn't it ironic that the New York Times is defending China? They're defending China. NanoPie, I didn't actually think about this, but it is funny, isn't it, that they're making the evil U, orange? I don't think that was an accident. Mr. Putin, whose military has bombed Ukrainian citizens and committed atrocities, is not a foe.
What is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business and kept me indoors for 2 years? Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination?
Now, okay, I will say this. I actually don't think that the right is going to, obviously I'm biased, but I actually don't think that the right is going to gain anything by defending Vladimir Putin. I think it's a bad idea. Vladimir Putin is not a good guy. He is not a hero. He is not a great defender of individual liberties. He is an oligarch. He is a dictator. He is not, he is really not a good person, guys. Yes, Ukraine is corrupt, but Russia is also extraordinarily corrupt. Both countries are corrupt. There is no innocent in this particular game. So I think that the right are misstepping when they're defending Vladimir Putin. I don't think it's a good look. Nonetheless, it is worth noting here that a U.S. judge in a 2020 ruling dismissing slander accusations against Mr. Carlson said Fox News lawyers argued persuasively, that any reasonable viewer arrives with an appropriate amount of skepticism about the statements he makes. As you watch the stories in this video, consider the judge's words. Mr. Carlson often begins segments with a grain of truth or an accurately quoted story, and then he distorts a concept to fit his narrative. Mr. Carlson continually hammers at the idea that they care more about everything else: identity politics, Afghan refugees, preventing a border wall, Roger Stone's prison sentence, than you. Repetition and you framing are tools commonly used by populist or authoritarian leaders to create emotional connections with their followers. Well, okay, there is a big difference between a populist leader and an authoritarian leader. Populist leaders are not authoritarian leaders. They're just not. They don't know the definition of the word populist. They're trying to demonize populists.
They care more about identity politics than they care about your life. They care more about preventing a border wall than they do about raising the wages of American workers. They care more about putting Roger Stone in prison than about punishing looters and arsonists. They care far more about foreigners than about their own people. They seem to care more about Venezuela than they care about this country. They care about Afghans far more than they care about you. They don't care about you, and they're saying that as clearly as they possibly can. They don't care about your kids, and they really don't care about your grandkids.
I understand what Tucker Carlson is doing here. He's putting people to a choice. He's saying, which do you care about more, thing A or thing B? I actually think this is a really edifying thing to do. If you ever really want to know what people care about, look at what their behaviors tell you that they care about, because their behaviors will always tell you, do you care more? In the case of Disney, my favorite new example, do Republicans care more about free speech than they do about owning Disney? Do Republicans care about lowering taxes more than they do about owning Disney? Do Republicans care more about creating small government than they do about owning Disney? See where this is going? It can be a really edifying thing. It's not always the most accurate and nuanced of statements, but if you can push people to a choice to say, do you care about A or do you care about B? Choose. That's how you start to identify what their values are. That's how you start to identify what their principles are. Because if Republicans, and I'm beating up on Republicans to make a point specifically because I know most of you guys align more in that area. If Republicans care more about, destroying Disney than they do about free speech, that is going to tell you what their behaviors are going to be moving forward. It's an extremely edifying moment to look at. Kate J, thank you for the super chat. New York Times took tons of advertising money from the CCP before the pandemic, which which Tucker reported on. So it's no surprise they defend them in the article. Yeah, I don't think we should be surprised at all. Thank you, Kate J, for that clarification. Exactly. Average person, bring it, guys. Bring it. Here are all the 1,150 Tucker Carlson Tonight episodes that the New York Times analyzed from November 2016 through 2021. Carlson invoked the ruling class in more than 800 shows. In the next slide, you will see a repetition of a theme. The ruling class wants you to shut up and obey.
If you don't like it, shut up. Shut up and obey. Shut up and obey. Shut up and obey. I'm far more important than you are. Shut up. Shut up and believe. Shut up, dumb American. Shut up, racist. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Just shut up. Okay? Just shut up.
I mean, I think that Tucker Carlson is making a really clear point in that that is exactly what the Democrats want you to do. That is exactly what the woke want you to do. That is exactly what the left wants you to do. It's exactly what the progressives want you to do. They want to silence you. They very literally just created a goddamn ministry of truth. Don't tell me the government doesn't want to silence you when they're creating a ministry of fucking truth. So Tucker Carlson is exactly right. And the New York Times is pointing out correctly that Tucker Carlson is saying that they want you to shut up. That is exactly what they want you to do. The thing that the left fears the most is that people will find their voice and stand up for themselves. The thing that the left would love is if the silent majority, well, the so-called silent majority, remained the silent majority. The most effective thing that any person can do to turn back this cultural revolution in which we find ourselves is to speak up and use your voice. That is the entire point. If everyone that disagrees with the bullshit Ministry of Truth and the Joe Biden administration and Kamala Harris cackling about whatever she's cackling about in this particular moment, if every single person that disagreed with them spoke up and said no, they would have no power anymore. But they don't, which is why Democrats control everything. They want to replace you. Not only do they want to control you, Mr. Carlson warns, they want this to destroy you and your way of life. They have various ways of thinking or doing this, he asserts, including importing immigrants from the third world to replace you with more obedient voters. The premise is the crux of an unfounded racist conspiracy theory that, isn't this good journalism by the New York Times? An unfounded racist conspiracy theory that falling birth rates and immigration are leading to the replacement of white people. The theory echoes long-held beliefs of American white nationalists that Jewish elites is orchestrating this replacement. Jews will not replace us was the chant of white nationalists marching in Charlottesville. Versions of replacement theory have been cited by perpetrators of mass shootings, like those who targeted a Pittsburgh synagogue and Hispanic voters in El Paso. Well, I'll tell you this. Tucker Carlson has had on people that have advanced this fucking conspiracy theory. And I'm going to tell you, it does the right no favors to pander to this. It does the right no favors when they pander to legitimate alt-right white identitarian nonsense. The right's got to be more careful about this because Tucker Carlson has listen, I do not believe that everyone on the right is depicted in the statement that we see on the screen right now. Don't believe it at all. However, the right does itself no favors when they don't denounce this bullshit and when they feature this bullshit on their primetime news, because then it will inevitably be used against you. And that has happened on Tucker Carlson before. It has. And people should, and his producers should do better. They really should.
In order to win and maintain power, Democrats plan to change the population of the country.
After Mr. Carlson promoted replacement theory on a show in April 2021, the Anti-Defamation League called for his firing. The Times found that it was far from the first time Mr. Carlson had done so. In more than 400 episodes, he has amplified the idea that Democratic politicians and others want to force demographic change through immigration.
This is how radical demographic change happens. I don't want to live in a country that looks nothing like the country I grew up in. They can embrace the issues the middle class cares about, or they can import an entirely new electorate from the third world and change the demographics of the U.S. so completely they'll never.
All right. We're going to be here all day if we don't start getting, this is all replacement stuff, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to watch all this stuff. They're really hammering on that. More and more Carlson, over time, the show has evolved to become more potent and direct, an echo chamber of Mr. Carlson's narrative. Where Mr. Carlson once regularly interviewed guests who disagreed with him, he has increasingly devoted less airtime to opposing views and more to talking directly to you through his ever-growing monologues. What is wrong with Tucker Carlson talking to his audience? Isn't that what maintains a show's audience? Is if they feel like the host is speaking directly to them? Isn't that part of the point? Of nearly 7,000 guest appearances, about 1,000 of them, highlighted in yellow, contradicted Mr. Carlson. Each dot represents an appearance. Gray dots are guests who largely agreed with Mr. Carlson. Well, I mean, how many people go on MSNBC and disagree with Rachel Maddow? Probably less than this.
Because of climate change. That's how
So
the
much
world
of
would
this
be
you
different
don't
if it
know.
weren't for humans.
You pretend that you know, but you don't know.
It's also important that we place a premium on diversity, and the fact that we have
But
people
diversity
in this
means appearance.
administration.
It means what you look like.
No,
You're
no,
talking
no.
about the shallowest possible criterion.
He wasn't wrong there.
I'm kind of confused
it is
because,
racism what is happening in this
of course, it's not racism. That's called
Of course it
demagoguery.
is
But let me ask you
racism.
this.
All right. Now, nearly all
This is
guests
about the
amplifies
survival
Mr.
of this
Carlson's
country, and
narrative.
we will not back.
Whatever. Fox News did not change the guest format simply because liberals refused to come on the show, as Mr. Carlson has complained. Scrutinizing ratings data, the network learned that its audience didn't actually want to hear from the other side. Well, of course not. If they wanted to hear from the other side, they'd watch MSNBC or CNN. I mean, I can understand why Fox News would not have as many liberals on. Like, what? Like liberals have like every other network. This is the longest. Oh God, this is how countries collapse. Mr. Carlson has said he thinks about the show in installments, giving his audience one chapter tonight, one tomorrow. Many of his chapters end up in the same place with warnings that the country and sometimes civilization itself is falling apart because of the policies enacted by the ruling class. In the next slide, we'll show you what that sounds like.
America isn't falling to foreign invaders. It is rotting from within because the people in charge don't think it's worth preserving. They hate the society, they hate the civilization, and so they're constantly rooting for the people who seek to destroy it. What we're watching is a full-scale assault from within on the West itself. This is how countries fall apart. Politicians in Brussels, Berlin, and Paris are going to destroy Western civilization with their enthusiasm for mass migration. This is how it ends. This is how it falls apart. Western civilization is our birthright. It makes all good things possible. If we care about our families and our civilization, about the future of our descendants, we have got to fight them like everything depended on it, because everything does depend on it.
I mean, Tucker Carlson was right in pretty much everything that he said on that. And it's just so bizarre. It's like we really do live in an alternate reality in which the two different sides can look at exactly the same piece of information. And one side's going to go, yep, that's completely right. And the other side is going to go, racist. Mr. Carlson has warned of such dire outcomes in nearly 600 episodes. It seems to me that the New York Times is like mad that Tucker Carlson has a show that people like to watch where Tucker Carlson expresses his opinions and people agree with those opinions. Did I basically just sum that up? Do we even need to continue on with this multimedia story that's going to take like 17 hours to get through because the New York Times is that obsessed with Tucker Carlson that they created a 3-part series, including a multimedia journalism presentation that basically says, like, Tucker Carlson has his own show, and a lot of people watch his show, and Tucker Carlson expresses his opinion on that show, and when he has an opinion, he expresses it over and over and over again, and people like his opinion. People listen to his opinion. How dare they listen to Tucker Carlson when they could be listening to us? Did I basically just sum up the New York Times' argument? I think I did. So if you would like to read the rest of this, You can head over to the New York Times right now. You can go to their homepage. Let me find it again. There it is. There it is. You can head over and read American Nationalist: How Tucker Carlson Stroked White Fear to Conquer Cable, You Evil Racist and White Supremacist. Well, guys, please mount that like button for me if you're enjoying this so far. And just so you know, even though there was some controversy this past week with my audiobook getting sabotaged by a woke leftist reader, I shit you not, we're taking care of it. Rick asked earlier in the chat, have I ever thought about reading for Audible? I will be reading for Audible because in the original audio recording of my book, which accidentally got released on Tuesday, a woke leftist read my audiobook. She sounds like the Crypt Keeper and the Wicked Witch of the West and the Grandmother of Flowers in the Attic. If any of you got that audiobook and listened to it, I'm so sorry. That was not what was supposed to happen. And I will be rectifying the situation. But luckily, you can still get your orders in for the book. If you order the Kindle version, you will actually get it right now. But I want to encourage everyone to order the hardcover because it's really, really nice. It came out so beautifully. They pulled down the audio version for right now. I'm going to work on them tomorrow about getting the pre-order for the audio version back up. And I will have more updates about what is going on with the book and how you guys can get a hold of that audio version, the correct audio version that I will be reading as soon as I know, and harangue my publisher into submission on that. But for right now, you can head over to activelyunwoke.com for more information. AD says it rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. Indeed, AD. Indeed, indeed. All right, let's move on. Guys, did you know that men can give birth? Apparently, midwifery students are now being taught how to care for men that are giving birth. This is real. Now, I'm pretty sure midwifery is like a gendered term by itself, so that already makes it a little bit weird. Let's read. Students studying midwifery at a prominent university in the United Kingdom were taught that biological males can get pregnant and give birth through their penis before instructors hastily edited a workbook they were given. That would be rather painful, wouldn't it? I don't know that I would recommend that. Redux has exclusively obtained teaching resources from concerned students studying midwifery at Edinburgh Napier University in Scotland. These students, who wish to remain anonymous out of their concerns for their careers, were initially provided biologically impossible instructions on giving care to males who were pregnant and in labor. In a module about caring for women during childbirth, the students were initially provided a skills workbook on catheterization that contains significant guidance about handling male genitals and caring for biologically male birthing people. You can't make this stuff up. According to the workbook, students were advised it is important to note that while most times the birthing person will have female genitalia, you may be caring for a pregnant or birthing person who is transitioning from male to female and may have external male genitalia. I'm sorry, what? That's not how that works. That's not how that works at all. Edie says, by that logic, vaginal birth is ejaculation. Indeed. Indeed. What a time to be alive. So we've got a book or an image here. It says introduction. Welcome to the Catheterization Skills Workbook. Throughout this learning, we are going to look at the theory of catheterization, including anatomy and physiology of the urinary systems, indications for a urinary catheter, and care and maintenance of a urinary catheter. The material is to prepare you for the skills session in week 3. It is important to know, and guys, this is really tough to read, so if I flub this, I apologize. But it is important to note that while most times the birthing person will have female genitalia, you may be caring for pregnant or birthing persons who is transitioning from male to female and may still have external male genitalia. You need to be familiar with the catheterization procedure for both male and female anatomy. For this reason, where appropriate, this book refers to birthing person. While the introduction of the manual could perhaps be dismissed as a mistake, misprint, or uninitiated individual attempt to utilize inclusive language, the university made Workbook clearly moves on to providing students instructions on how to accommodate a pregnant biological male. The book informs students that they may need to be familiar with the catheterization procedures for both male and female anatomy, noting that as a result of the fact that both males and females may be giving birth, it will only utilize the term birthing person throughout the instruction. The workbook reminds students that birthing person may be a biological male in two separate sections. Here we have, hang on. It is important to note that while most times the pregnant and birthing person will have female genitalia, you may be caring for a person who has transitioned from male to female and therefore still have external male genitalia. You need to be familiar. This is a totally different section than the introduction. It's just saying the same thing. Wow. It's pretty clearly showing a penis. I'm just saying. In section 4.4 of the manual, catheterization processes for biological males are provided, with images of an instructor demonstrating the procedure on a male figurine's penis and scrotum. Anesthetic gel doses were also given based on male and female biologies, with females recommending 6 milliliters and males recommended around 11. Well, I thought that there was no difference between the bodies of men and women, though. Am I confused about that? Was I given incorrect information by the NCAA? In another section, special procedures are provided for the removal of catheters with consideration for prostate glands, with students being instructed to warn male persons of discomfort as the deflated balloon passes through the prostate gland. While instruction staff later realized the significant errors made, the hasty edit to the guidebook only corrected the initial wording in the introduction, changing male to female to male. All references to the handling of a penis, prostate gland, and other male biology remained, but also added the suggestion a female to male transgender person could give birth through a surgically constructed penis. No, that's not how that works. I'm pretty sure if a person that transitioned from female to male gave birth through a surgically constructed penis, that surgically constructed penis would probably be destroyed. Like, that would be, like, that just doesn't, those things are, okay, I could be incorrect. I'm ignorant in this area, but it is my understanding that those surgically constructed penises tend not to, like, be the biggest things in the world. So then you're trying to pass a baby through that? That's not how that works. Is that the argument? Like, that is not possible. It is not possible. It would destroy the whole surgical construction. That makes no sense at all. Why are we living in this world? Like, I don't know. Listen, biology and sciences in general were my least favorite classes in school. I didn't do bad in them because I didn't do bad in any class. But, like, I hated biology and chemistry and physics and all that stuff. Hated it. But I'm pretty sure that this is not biologically correct. I'm pretty sure that's like, yeah, exactly. That's like trying to stick your dick through a Cheerio. There are just some things that don't work, man. I mean, I'm sorry, not everyone gets to play on the team. Not everyone gets to have a baby. It is what it is. Wow. There's more here if you guys want to go back and read it, but, you know. What a time to be alive. Moving on. Kindergarten teachers in Florida are having some feelings. They are. This piece in NBC News, I'm a gay kindergarten teacher in Florida. These are the questions that I'm asking myself. How can I have frank, open conversations with my students about the world around them without being in danger of losing my job? Now, again, you couldn't pay me enough money to have a child, let alone children. But it is my understanding that when children are around the age of 5, they aren't having in-depth conversations about the meaning of life. I don't remember having any in-depth conversations about the meaning of life when I was in kindergarten. Now, granted, I was even a little bit more advanced, man. I was reading at like a 4th or 5th grade level in kindergarten, just because I read, like, that was just the way it goes. I learned how to read young, and so I read all the time. I was a very introverted child. Books were my friend. And still, I don't recall having nuanced conversations about the meaning of life or love or relationships with my kindergarten teacher. Her name was Mrs. Baird, by the way. I didn't even know Mrs. Baird had a husband. And no idea. You want to know why? Because I was coloring, because I was 5 years old in kindergarten, and that's how that works. Teaching has been my passion for the past 12 years. I'm proud to call myself an educator. For the first 2 years, I taught first grade. It prepared me to effectively teach kindergarten while also focusing on kids' social and emotional development. No, that is incorrect. No, no. We are already seeing, we are 3 sentences into this article, and we're finding ourselves with a teacher who is practicing psychology without a license. I have enjoyed working in Florida schools over the past 6 years, as has my partner, Jeremiah, who is also an educator. However, recently there has been a major cause for concern. I have been stricken with fear over how Florida's new law limiting discussions of LGBTQ plus discussions in school will affect me as a person and a professional. As a kindergarten teacher who is gay and has pictures of himself and his partner in the classroom, I regularly answer questions from my students like, Mr. Bernhardt, who is that in the pictures? Is that your brother? What did you do over the weekend? As contributing members of society, teachers shouldn't have to feel like they need to go back into the closet or hide who they are as people. If you have ever been around 5 or 6-year-olds, the number of questions asked in a single day can be relentless. Multiply it by 19, which is the number of students I have in a classroom, and its never-ending cycle of questions and answers. To be honest, I wouldn't want it any other way. Curious minds are learning minds. But because of Florida's new law, I'm afraid I could lose my job if I answer these questions honestly and have frank and open conversations with my students about the world around them. Can I talk about my partner with my students? What do I say when they ask, what does my partner mean? How do I respond when my students asked about another student who has 2 moms? These are all questions I have wrestled with in my mind as I prepare to teach under this new law. I mean, you could just leave Florida. You could just leave. You don't have to stay in Florida. There are 49 other states. You don't have to stay in Florida. It's allowed. You can move. The chilling effect and scare tactics have already hit home after an interview with a local news station last month about how this law would affect me was featured on HBO's Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. I was asked to appear in a live interview on MSNBC. Following the interview, the number of negative social media messages, angry calls to my school, cynical YouTube comments. Ooh, we wouldn't want that. And even TikTok videos attacking me was astounding. Many even used the word pedophile and groomer. To have people describe you in such horrible terms because of who you love, to have someone assume you'd hurt a child in any way when your lifelong passion has been to foster their growth and education is hurtful and wrong. Both teachers and students should be able to talk about their families regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. The harassment didn't end up. Calls and emails were made to my superintendent demanding my termination. Far-right news outlets began writing headlines like, gay kindergarten teacher wants to talk to his kids about his love life. Well, that's basically what you're saying, dude. And the number of random phone calls to my personal cell phone increased twofold. Dude, congratulations. Welcome to doing media. If you don't like it, don't do media. There is a reason that I stopped doing media. Take responsibility for your actions. If you go on MSNBC, you're going to get backlash. If you write a thing on MSNBC News, you're going to get backlash. If you get featured in John Oliver Tonight, you're going to get backlash. I went on Fox News over a year ago and said something that was absolutely factually correct, that was on the right side, and I still get backlash from the right for that today. That's why I don't do media. If you don't want backlash from doing media, you don't do media. In the face of all this, I plan to continue to fulfill my goal as an educator and incorporate The 3 words people see as they approach the elementary school where I teach: family, memories, and passion. This guy's just whining and complaining. That's all this is. Whining and complaining because he can't talk about his sex life with kindergartners who, P.S., don't care about his sex life anyway. Now, I don't think necessarily that calling this guy a groomer is like the right thing to do, and I think it actually is starting to create more problems than it's worth. But why do you want to talk about your sex life with kids? That's a little weird. The kids, like, spoiler alert, the kids don't care. They don't actually care all that much. They care significantly more about what they're going to have at snack time than they do about what you do in bed. They don't care. They're just kids. You can easily deflect onto any other topic that you want. It is really not that hard. All right, guys, we're going to keep going. By special request from my locals community, Trans Scott Killer now identifying as infant demands nappies and baby food in jail. A murderer who changed gender is demanding to be treated as a baby by prison staff. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Sophie Eastwood, formerly known as Daniel, was jailed for life in 2004 for strangling a cellmate with shoelaces. Isn't that nice? The killer has now told the prison governor at Polmont Jail that she wants to identify as a baby, wear nappies. I suspect that's diapers, but someone can tell me if I'm wrong about that. And have meals blended like baby food. Eastwood also demands that prison officers hold her hand when she is escorted from her cell. It is understood that prison bosses are treating the demands seriously and considering which protocols might be established in dealing with the prisoner. And there she is. Eastwood has already been supplied with a dummy. A source said a prisoner has been difficult and manipulative over the years, which is why she is still behind bars after 17 years. She decided she would trans from man to woman, which is becoming more common in jails these days. But this is obviously something else entirely, and the Scottish Prison Service has no protocol in place for dealing with prisoners who decide they are babies. Why do prisoners have the freedom to decide they're babies? I'm just saying. Like, why are they even given this option? You're denying them their freedom from society entirely, but you're giving them the freedom to say, I'm a baby and you have to treat me as such. That doesn't seem right. Guess what? If she gets hungry enough, she's going to eat what she's given. You don't have to blend it into baby food and make her wear a diaper. That's gross. But this is obviously something else entirely, and the Scottish Prison Service has no protocol. The source added, Eastwood is a complex person and intelligent, but she is pretty demanding on the resources of the prison and enjoys being the center of attention. It's difficult to know if she really feels like a natural inclination to be treated as a baby, or if it's just some kind of attention seeking. No, it's actually not hard at all. It's really not hard at all. She wants attention. She's bored. This is not even complicated to figure out. She killed her last cellmate with shoelaces, probably because she was insane and also bored. And now she's pretending to be a baby because she is insane and also bored. Modern prisons are very tuned into human rights and legal implications when they throw up, so it's being given proper consideration. Eastwood, 36, is serving a life sentence for killing Paul Algie, 22, in 2004. Formerly Daniel Eastwood, she has been living as a woman in prison for 4 years and completed her 15-year minimum term in 2019. But she has remained in secure conditions and is not due for release. The source said the prisoner has already served the entire punishment term of the tariff, but she has not been advanced through the prison estate to a place where she can prepare for release. There's currently no intention to put her in any open prison regime. This is nothing to do with gender issues. She simply refuses to play by the rules or show any inclination or readiness to live in normal society. Well, I would say so. Speaking to the Daily Record from Polmont Prison earlier this year, Eastwood claimed she would have been freed by now if she had remained a man. It's the patriarchy, man. Patriarchy in action. She said in January 2020, I met all the standard criteria to pass a less secure conditions except being biologically female. The prison service wanted me to have a psychological assessment as I hadn't had one since starting to live as a female. After that, I was told by a manager that I would have passed the assessment if I had still been living as a man. Well, yes, if you are transitioning from one gender to another, that likely means there are psychological issues at play. And I'm not demeaning anything towards trans people, but trans people typically have gender dysphoria, which is a psychological issue which should require counseling. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. I felt this was sexist and transphobic. The SPS was implying that as a man, I didn't represent a risk to the public, but as a woman, I did. I don't think there's any evidence to support that. Well, you're now arguing to live as a baby and want to wear diapers. Each Eastwood case reveals a troubled life that escalated out of control. Then living as a boy, Daniel, she was jailed in 2004 for driving dangerous. A month before the date for release from Dumfries Young Offenders Institution, an inmate strangled Paul Algie, 22, with considerable and prolonged force. Staff were so concerned about the violence used, they branded Eastwood Hannibal Lecter Jr. Yes, this definitely seems like someone that is psychologically stable, that she's being branded as Hannibal Lecter Jr. when in a young offender's prison. Eastwood was jailed for life in order to serve a minimum of 15 years at the High Court in Glasgow, and has now served more than 17 years. The killer said she realized at a psychologist session in 2016 that she was not a gay man, but identified instead. Oh, so it's the psychologist. It's always goddamn woke psychologists. She takes a drug that blocks the production of male hormone testosterone. She has been held in women's only units since 2018. She claims to be remorseful. I was 18. To say I had unresolved issues would be a massive understatement. Dude, you want to live as a baby. To say you don't have unresolved issues now would be a gross fabrication. I was naive, immature, and thought killing my cellmate would get me sectioned and I'd spend the rest of my life in a hospital being looked after. I'm sorry and I regret it every day. Well, she might still yet spend the rest of her life in a hospital. That might still happen. The spokesperson said we can't comment on individual prisoners. So that's what's going on in Scotland. Yay. Oh, what a time to be alive. Well, guys, the last story that we're going to look at before we do our happy story, this is our last effed up story, is about me. Occasionally things involve me. I wanted to talk about it earlier this week. I just didn't have an opportunity to, but I wanted to share with all of you that I have been canceled by the National Speakers Association for speech. I'm not kidding. This really happened. This is like one of the most bizarre things that's ever happened to me in my life, and I documented it on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. Let's read. I was very proud when I was able to join the National Speakers Association as a professional member. That was a sign I had made it in my field, because to join as a professional member, you have to provide them with proof that you made above a certain income purely from speaking engagements. And being able to do so meant you were able to sustain yourself purely based on your ability to engage a room full of people. When I joined, I had been working on developing my abilities as a speaker for over 10 years, and it felt like a well-earned moment of validation for all the hard work that goes into it. Sadly, it looks as though my relationship with the National Speakers Association is coming to an end. Today, I was canceled from their private members Facebook group, a literal benefit I'm entitled to, for political speech. Here's what happened. Last week, a member of the group began expressing his discontent that an executive from Chick-fil-A would be speaking at the association's annual conference. Apparently not realizing that they could simply choose to not attend that particular talk if they did not want to hear from that speaker, the thread quickly filled up with comments from other people expressing their that should be discontent, not disconnect, but I'm not the best copy editor in the world, as you guys all know. But you can see this thread had 281 comments on it. And I'm going to tell you what, I have been in this Facebook group probably for like 4 or 5 years now. I very rarely participate. But it was not uncommon to see crap like this in this particular Facebook group. Not uncommon at all. The thread was considered resolved. You can see that Bob turned off comments to the thread when the president of the foundation bent the knee and apologized for daring to have this executive at their conference. So Jim is the chairman of the National Speaker Foundation board, and he made this comment in the Facebook group. As the chairman of your NSA Foundation board, I want to acknowledge our recent misstep, and the Foundation board is grateful for this conversation. With more diverse perspectives in this conversation, we can listen, learn, and respond accordingly. Our program planning, marketing, and communication will be better because of this conversation. Thank you, and stay tuned for more details about our exciting foundation plans for Influence. Influence is the name of their annual conference. Now, what you'll notice in this post is that he doesn't say that the speaker from Chick-fil-A is being canceled. And actually, I learned later that even though there was a lot of uproar and ruckus and complaining about the fact that there was a speaker from Chick-fil-A, the speaker from Chick-fil-A is apparently still scheduled to speak at the conference. But I was annoyed at this happening at all. And so I decided to do a little experiment. Now, I don't really have skin in this game. I wasn't planning on going to the conference. However, I abhor cancel culture in all its forms, and I decided to speak up. So in the dark of night, I made the following post to the group in protest. So I actually made this post around like 1 a.m. and I took a screenshot of it immediately because I fully expected that when I woke up the next day, this post was going to be deleted. But so this is what I said. I just posted a cover of my book. So I'm not marketing the book at all. I just posted the cover and I said, I'm just wondering if I should anticipate being removed from the National Speakers Association for writing a book that's coming out in a few weeks that some people in this community will consider racist. We should probably get it out of the way right now, if so. And I just posted a cover of the book. That was it. This post was not meant to be a promotion of the book. It was clearly intended to be a protest to gauge how the organization would respond and if it was still a good fit for me. I did not post a link to the sales page for the book, have any calls to action for people to buy it, or encourage people to do so. I posted the cover to demonstrate the content to assess what the blowback would be. Sure enough, as the sun rose the next day and the progressive members of the group started seeing the post, they were not happy. Within hours, I received this message from an NSA staff member telling me they had removed the post. And you'll see this message from Candace, who has an NSA speaker email. Hi, Carlin, we're removing the post because this post and comments because it violates the NSA's self-promotion policy. Thank you for understanding. If you have questions and or concerns, please email me directly at candace@nsaspeaker.org. You can tell she's an NSA staff member because her email tells us so. I responded that it would not be necessary for me to ask her questions because instead I would use my voice and share with the world that the National Speakers Association was canceling its members due to political speech. I also provided her with several examples of people who had posted the covers of their books with far more clear calls to action to buy than I did that remained in the group. Here's one example of a book on the other end of the political spectrum that is a clear promotion of the book, including a call to action to buy it, that had been live in the same group I made my post in since December 15th. So this is, would you guys say that this is a sales post? This is for the book, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Dummies, that was released back in January. It has a QR code to buy the book. It has a call to action to buy the book. And the post itself says, breaking epic news, reshare alert. It's been the busiest year ever for me, but the impact is long lasting and I'm forever grateful. Introducing the first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Dummies book that I had the honor of writing. This post was allowed in the group. I literally took this screenshot after they kicked me out of the group. That was allowed, but my post, where I'm not even doing a call to action, I'm just posting the cover, that wasn't allowed. NSA, excuse me? Why is this allowed? Why is this promotion acceptable, but my posting a cover of my book with no link, no call to action, and in clear protest of a decision the organization made is deemed a violation and removed? The answer, of course, is politics. The NSA has bent the knee to the woke mob. Within about 10 minutes or so of showing this NSA employee this clear example, I was removed from the group entirely because they wanted to prevent me from collecting more evidence. The National Speakers Association has bent the knee to the woke mob, clearly demonstrating to its members that if you engage in political speech that does not align with a far-left ideology, you are not welcome. And there is another group of more conservative NSA speakers or more liberty-minded NSA speakers that's joining. If you are a speaker or consultant and you want to get access to that, you can find the link in this article on my Substack. But follow up. A few days after this happened, so I created a little bit of ruckus for them. I have not yet, by the way, heard from the NSA on any of this, but they've all been chitter-chattering about it. And I can follow up to this and let you guys know that I have now been accused of violations by a member of the National Speakers Association board. And I have evidence of that. Last week, I shared my story, the one we just read. To the best of my knowledge, I have not received any official communication from the National Speaker Association regarding my membership. And I certainly have not received any explanation for why I was removed from the Facebook group. And I'm going to tell you this, my locals can attest to this because my Zoom membership, the one we use twice a week to talk in my locals, my Zoom membership is through the National Speakers Association. It's like part of a group plan. This is really the only reason I'm still a member of the National Speakers Association is there's like an epic discount on Zoom. So my Zoom membership has not yet been canceled. I have received no communication from the National Speakers Association at all in any way, and my membership is still active. But the board is talking shit about me, apparently. Thankfully, other members of the association have been following up with what happened, and I can now report that I'm being accused of violating several NSA member standards outside of their Facebook group. This, of course, is happening in the Facebook group where I am unable to see the accusations or respond to them. This post is from Courtney Clark, a member of the National Speakers Association Board of Directors. And this is I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Mr. Goldson, we'll call him. Can the administrators confirm that Carlin Borisenko was banned from this group for posting her new anti-woke book? So basically, this guy's asking, like, because, okay, so here's what happened. Members of, like, the woke members of this group basically said, Carlin wasn't banned from this group. She removed herself from the group, which I did not. I was banned from the group entirely. I did not remove myself. I would never remove myself from a group. And so they wanted confirmation. Was I banned or what did I remove myself? And so we've got a member of the NSA board of directors here saying, I think it's before work hours for the NSA staff, but I'm aware of at least one thing that Carlin did offline from this Facebook page that heavily violated several NSA member standards. It was not for writing a book about cancel culture, nor for talking about writing a book about cancel culture. No irony there. Huh. Interesting, Courtney. That's interesting. Do you notice that Courtney doesn't say what violations I committed? I still have no idea what she's talking about. What violations did I commit, Courtney? I have yet to receive any communication from Courtney, any communication from the NSA board of directors, any communication at all on this issue, or any evidence that I committed any violations. So I said, given that Ms. Clark is making a serious accusation in a public forum that I violated several NSA member standards, I demand the National Speakers Association provide me with a complete list of the ethical standards they claim I violated. If they cannot provide such a list, I demand Ms. Clark publicly retract her statement and apologize. I'll wait. I still haven't gotten any list. I still can use my Zoom. I'm still a member of the NSA. I just got banned from their Facebook group. I'm still waiting for my list, NSA. What did I do? We all know the answer to this. We know what's going to happen, right? They're going to go back and they're probably going to find that fucking Newsweek article and they're going to make up some violation that I mysteriously committed even though no violation existed, purely because I called them on their bullshit. That's why. So I am sad that it seems as though my relationship with the National Speakers Association is coming to an end. And I do genuinely mean that. I really do, actually. Like, it was a big deal for me to join the National Speakers Association. Like, it was a big deal. When I became a professional member, I was like, yes. Like, I worked so hard. People don't understand. You guys think, or some people think that, like, I just turned on a microphone and started doing YouTube. No, I was speaking professionally for years before I started doing this. And I sucked when I first started speaking. I think my first talk at a conference was like in 2006 or something like that. I used to suck as a speaker. I was so nervous. I was so afraid of speaking in public. And I forced myself over and over and over again to travel on my own dime, to go to conferences, to give presentations, to get better at speaking. I practiced hours and hours and hours. I used to have to practice for dozens of hours leading up to a talk to be able to give it at the quality level that I wanted. I became a total nerd about public speaking. I would go to talks specifically to learn how to be a better public speaker. Like, what do I like? What don't I like? It took over a decade of this before I got to a place where I was able to make a living giving keynotes, making a living doing trainings, doing things off the cuff like you see me do on YouTube every single day. I don't need a script at all. And the reason that I can do this is because I practiced over and over and over and over and over again until I got it right. And now I'm being kicked out of the National Speakers Association, well, maybe, at least out of their Facebook group, for writing a book they don't like when they are at the same time promoting books that politically align with what they like. So please, National Speakers Association, you don't believe in speech at all. You only believe in speech that you agree with. It's incredibly disappointing. And there are a lot of people out there that don't agree with you. There are people out there who are doing keynotes who have worked very, very hard for a lot of years to be able to get to a point of charging thousands of dollars to do a keynote that you're now basically spitting in the face of because of your woke members who are forcing you to bend the knee. I think it's sad. I think it's pathetic. I think they should stop. And I would really like an explanation from Miss Courtney about what violations I allegedly committed. All right. Thank you for allowing me to get that off of my chest. And by the way, guys, if you didn't know, I actually told this story first on my new Actively Unwoke podcast. This is a new thing that I've just started. There's 4 episodes so far. Each episode is about 20 minutes long. And I did actually tell this story about, you can see on episode 3, I just got canceled by the National Speakers Association. The podcast is currently available in Apple. It's available on Google. It's available on my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke. It is an audio-only podcast. We're working on getting it up in Spotify. There's some sort of weird thing. I don't really know what's going on, but someone's working on fixing it. But if you want to subscribe to the podcast, at least an Apple podcast, that's available right now. And I would love it if you guys could go and give me a rating for this podcast, because, the thing is with my type of content, what I always have to counterbalance is the woke idiots that are going to rate things 1 star that they haven't listened to. So I do have a review up. It says, timely, concise, insightful, and actionable. This podcast is off to an excellent start and seems poised to make a significant difference. I'm so glad to see this project in motion. The format and focus seem aptly tuned to the need I see for concise, focused insight and actionable advice on diffusing the scourge of wokeism. And it goes on, and I'm really appreciative for that review. But if you guys have been listening to my podcast or you want to help me out, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, leaving some words about what you like about it would be really great. And again, these episodes are going to be shorter. They're going to be around 20 minutes or less in length and providing a really actionable tip about fighting back against woke insanity. All right, well, I do like to end on something fun. And so for my fun story, the Free State Project is back. The Free State Project has received another endorsement in a local newspaper, in a letter to the editor. And I just wanted to read to you what the Democrats in New Hampshire are saying about the Free State Project now. In case you missed it, HB 1393 school budget cap bill supported by Windham state reps. Here is the question in front of New Hampshire today. Should we fund the best possible education for our kids? Or should we cut public schools to reduce taxes? Yes, please. Yes, please. What do we want our children's futures and ours and our neighbors? What do we want for our country and the future of our country? Okay, is there a meeting tonight? Yes, I will send out a link in a second. I will. The nation's roots in public education begin with the Massachusetts Puritans, who saw the benefit of having all children learn reading, writing, math, and join together to give them the best education they could. Today's New England states rank in the top 10 most educated in the country, with New Hampshire at number 8. The ranking is under serious threat with a voucher system that takes money out of public schools and other measures being pushed by extremists like a budget cap. HB 1393, which was supported by 2 of Windham's state reps and is now before the Senate. What needs to be understood is that the Free State Project members and many on the extreme right have the ultimate goal of completely removing and privatizing the public education system in this state. Yes, we do. They say that like it's a bad thing. I feel like this is an endorsement. They promote the idea that parents should pay for their own children and no taxes should be used to fund education. Correct. The new bill is one more step in that direction. There is no support for the idea that we should join forces to help those less fortunate. They do not see that what they are proposing only increases the wage gap and leads to far more dangerous future for all of us. Our two newest reps, Robert Lynn and Julius Sodi, supported the bill. Mary Griffin and Charlie McMahon did not vote. It may be time to ask them why they supported it and why they did not vote. Let's get these answers on paper. Do they stand with democracy for all or only for those with money and power? Well, guess what? If you're not paying property taxes, 66% of which going to fund the public schools, you all of a sudden have a nice little treasure trove of money that you can use to advance education in other ways. And if I in the off chance that I am actually elected governor of New Hampshire, I will make the property tax optional. If people want to pay the property tax and fund the public schools, they can do that. If they do not want to pay the property tax and do not want to fund the public schools, they can take that money and use it elsewhere. People should be able to decide how to educate their children. It is beyond time to ask them what they want for the future of New Hampshire and if they support the ideology of the Free State Project. There is a direct assault being launched against our entire public school system, and it is happening now. Yes, it is. And New Hampshire Democrats just keep endorsing the Free State Project over and over and over and over and over again on Twitter, in local newspapers. It's actually incredible. It really is. Like, they're doing the work for the Free State Project. The Free State Project doesn't need to do anything. They just need to sit back and collect the clips of the Democrats saying the Free State Project wants to destroy public education. You're goddamn right it does, because public education needs to be destroyed. They're indoctrinating children. They aren't even teaching them to read or write or do math or any of the important things. They're just talking about feelings and gender reassignment and bullshit like that. There is no reason for me to pay 66% of my property tax for the public schools when I don't even have kids, and the public schools aren't even doing their very basic level job. Public education needs to be destroyed. It needs to be completely defunded. Thomas Massie this week just introduced a bill in Congress that's like one sentence long that just says to defund the Department of Education. That's exactly what needs to happen. I know that this is scary for a lot of people, but I'm telling you, defunding education and public education will be the very best choice that this country makes ever. Scary for the short term, but so many long-term benefits of doing it. It sucks way too much money. They're not doing their jobs. They're indoctrinating kids. They're reassigning your kids' genders without telling you. It's time for this stuff to go. You need to make the hard and scary choice sometimes. And I'm so glad that the New Hampshire Democrats are promoting the good work of the Free State Project in endorsing that hard choice. All right, guys, that's all I've got for this week. Thank you for spending some time with me. Please mount that like button on the way out the door. And of course, please make sure you sign up and support my work by becoming a member of my locals. You can join for $5 a month. You can join for $50 a year. You can also make a one-time gift. If you would like to support my work in other ways via like PayPal or crypto or any of those things, you can find information about that in the description below. And of course, I appreciate all the support. And of course, please make sure you pre-order a copy of Actively Unwoke, which will be coming out officially on May 10th. The audio version's coming back, and it's going to be much better than the Crypt Keeper version that got accidentally released the other day. But you can still get your hardcover pre-order, and if you become an annual member in my locals, you're going to be able to request that I do a customized autographed bookplate for you that you can put right inside your hardcover. Fits nicely right on the front page, so you can have a signed copy, in addition to having an annual membership in my locals. All right, guys, that's all I've got for right now. I will be sending out the Unwoke Army link in a minute. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow at 5, and I guess we'll see you soon. That's it. Have a good one. Bye, guys.